Some of the people closest to you are not confused about your growth. They are just more comfortable with you staying the same. And that's not something that most people want to admit because it forces a different type of clarity. The kind that changes how you move in rooms, the kind that changes how you think and grow, the kind that changes how you trust, the kind that changes how you lead. Once you start really evolving, you start to noticing something strange. Not everybody claps the same way. Some people get quieter, and some people get more critical. Some people get more distant. Right when you start to get fully into who you are becoming. If you're anything like a high performer, you probably over-explain that too. You told yourself things like, maybe they're busy, maybe I'm overthinking, or maybe I just should think about it a different way, or maybe they didn't mean it that way. But here's the question that shifts everything. What if your interpretation wasn't wrong, just incomplete? Because this conversation isn't about blame. It's about alignment. And more importantly, it's about discernment. So stay with me, because once you see this clearly, you don't unsee it. One of the most exhausting experiences for a high performer is this. You are giving your best effort in relationships, at work, in leadership, and you are still feeling unsupported. Not openly opposed, not direct sabotage, just misalignment. And that misalignment can be confusing because it doesn't always feel like conflict. Sometimes it feels like silence when you expected encouragement, hesitation when you expected support, jokes that landed just a little too sharp, or people minimizing your wins in very subtle ways. So you start doing what capable people do best. You start over-functioning. You explain more, you're more patient, you work harder, more understanding, more availability, because deep down, you're trying to solve an emotional equation that doesn't have a solution. You start thinking, if I show up well enough, then they'll finally start showing up too. But here's the truth that most overachievers avoid. Not everyone has access to your growth the same way that you have access to theirs. And not everyone benefits from your expansion. Some people benefit directly and indirectly from your stability, from your predictability, from you staying just the way you are. And when you begin to change that pattern, the relationship doesn't always just collapse. Sometimes it just quietly reshapes itself. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because when people begin to shift around you, you rarely notice it as a single moment. You notice it as patterns, a slow emotional distance, a subtle withdrawal, and your mind tries to protect you from the truth by offering excuses for it. But internally, you feel. And what makes it even harder is this. You don't want to believe that the people around you are not in alignment with your growth, because that would mean you misread something. Or worse, you stay too long in dynamics that were not reciprocated. So instead, you start questioning yourself. Am I too sensitive? Am I expecting too much? Am I becoming difficult as I grow? But let me say this clearly. Sensitivity is not the problem. Your awareness is just becoming sharper. And here's the part that most people don't want to talk about. When you evolve, you don't just gain new skills. You also lose tolerance for old dynamics. What used to feel normal now feels heavy. What used to feel acceptable now feels misaligned. And not everybody around you evolves at the same pace or even in the same direction. So now you're stuck in a tension. You are expanding, but your environment may not be expanding with you. And that gap creates emotional friction, not because anyone is bad, but because growth changes access, and access changes behaviors, and behaviors change relationships. So let's name what's actually happening. Everyone is not on your team, and that's not bitterness. That is discernment. There is a difference between people who like you, people who benefit from you, and people who are aligned with your growth. Those are not the same categories. And one of the biggest lessons you will ever learn is this. Access is not the same as alignment. Someone can know you deeply, care about you, and still not be aligned with where you're going. And when you stop confusing those things, your emotional life gets clearer. Not easier, but clearer. Because you can now stop trying to extract support from people that were never meant to give it to you consistently. And this is where wisdom starts to replace resentment. Because bitterness says they should be different. Wisdom says they are showing me exactly who they are in this season. And once you accept that, your behavior changes. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop seeking validation from the wrong rooms. You stop trying to make everyone understand your direction, because not everyone is meant to go with you. And that's not rejection. That's refinement. So what do you do with this awareness? You don't become cold. You don't become closed off. You become precise. And here's what that looks like. First, stop assigning the same role to everyone in your life. Some people are supporters, some people are companions, and some people are just history. Second, stop negotiating your future with people that are committed to your past version. And third, protect your energy as if it is a resource and not an emotional overflow. Because it is. Your clarity, your capacity, your focus, they are not unlimited when you are trying to constantly manage misalignment. And finally, lead your life with this question. Does this connection expand me or drain me? Not every relationship requires removal. Some of them just need to be redefined. And when you start living with that level of discernment, something powerful happens. You stop trying to convince people to see you correctly, and you start building from environments that are already in alignment with your future. Because the goal was never to be understood everywhere. The goal is to be effective where it matters. And when you finally accept that everyone is not on your team, you stop performing in rooms that you were never meant to lead in. And you start leading where you are actually supported. Until next time, protect your peace, honor your capacity, and give yourself permission to be human.